Welcome to Money Talks. Today we're going to be talking about the ABCs of gold. How to buy it, how to sell it, the advantages, the disadvantages, and why it's so important to consider it as part of your portfolio. From the earliest days of recorded history, what is it that makes gold the most valuable commodity in the world? According to Dr. Claude Mariottini, Professor of Old Testament in Illinois in the US, it is a fact that in times of economic uncertainties, many people invest in gold as a way of dealing with the unforeseen problems caused by inflation or recession. It's also a fact that in the ancient past, kings and conquerors were fascinated by gold, not only as a currency or a means of commerce and trade, but for the beauty and splendor it conveyed to its owners. One of the theories that he mentions is that in King Nebuchadnezzar's time, an ounce of gold was worth 350 loaves of bread. And depending on the unit of measurement that was used at that time, and the unit of measurement that we use today, that same ounce of gold might still be worth 350 loaves of bread. If we use the current price of gold against the current price of a loaf of bread, so for example an ounce of gold at the time of writing this is $1,100 an ounce, and the price of bread is just over $3 a loaf, thus showing that the purchasing power of gold has not diminished since biblical times. It's astounding that in more than 2,000 years, gold is still being used for the same things today as it was then, as a hedge against inflation, for commerce, beauty, currency and insurance against the possibility of total economic collapse. In the East, people are used to owning gold. In the West, governments and corporations own gold. In China, for example, gold is sold nationally by the banks. In the West, however, you can't just go into any bank and buy gold. It is sold and bought by bullion dealers and mints. We know that major changes are taking place if a department store like Harrods in the UK is now selling gold coins and bars to the public. So, should you own gold? How do you buy gold? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? The advantages are that to buy coins and small bars are generally a liquid market, and you can find sellers and buyers when you need them, so they're easy to cash in. They're relatively accessible to smaller investors, and they're certainly insurance against collapse of the economy. In volatile times, it's always proved to be a safe haven. You're in control of your money, and you're not subject to a bank going bust or having to freeze your assets, the government being unable to guarantee your funds and thus lose all your money. You've got cash. If a good opportunity arises, you can move quickly. It's tradable around the world. These coins are mostly recognizable, which makes them exchangeable for goods in some circumstances. Just recently, I saw an advert on the internet for a landlord who wanted to rent out his house. He didn't state the dollar amount. What he asked instead for was a certain number of gold coins as payment. If you'll comb through the adverts on the internet, you might be surprised to see many of these adverts are now offering goods in exchange for gold coins. So as the expression goes, these times are a-changing. The disadvantages of having gold is that it's hard to store safely. It may stay at the same price for years and years and years. Governments manipulate the price. If gold becomes really valuable, gold coin usage is made illegal by governments, or it's so heavily taxed and constrained that it's no longer a viable option. For example, the government may tax the sale of gold bullion at 50%. Bullion on a black market would be just as hard to sell without getting cheated. What you're unable to sell, you don't really own. In April 1933, Roosevelt forced citizens to sell their gold. It was under a threat of a 10-year prison sentence and or a $10,000 fine. Then in January 1934, just 9 months later, he raised the price from $20.67 per ounce to $35 an ounce, an increase of 69%. There can be a considerable premium to purchase the gold, anywhere from 4–10% or even more in times of scarcity. So you have to build this into your costs. There are fakes out there, and these are usually only spotted by dealers. Currency fluctuations can affect the price in your country. So to summarize, the advantages of owning gold: it's easy to sell and buy. It's accessible to small investors. It's insurance against the collapse of the economy. You have got control over your money. It's tradable around the world not only for cash but also for goods and services. The disadvantages of owning gold: it's hard to store safely, it could be confiscated or taxed by governments, there's a premium of at least 4% to pay to the bullion dealer when you buy, and there are fakes out there, so buy from a reputable dealer. Don't go away, I'll be back soon.